Well, it looks like Japan finally has a tank that I would actually consider grinding. Let's begin.
And don't you stop the music, get into it, won't you dance with me? Find the bass and lose it, you can do it, won't you dance with me? Move your feet and feel it in the space between. You gotta give yourself a moment.
So, the way I'm going to do this devblog video is, traditionally the way I do it is I sort of take screenshots of the page and just go down the list and, we read along with it, but since it's really late where I'm living at the moment, I'm deciding to do it a different way. I'm going to read the devblog and just have the images of the tank in the background. So if you don't like that, go watch Tiger Frost's video on this. Anyway, so yeah, the Type 90, they've listed this one as the lightweight heavy hitter, which is a very good analogy for the vehicle. So let's just get started on the devblog. The Type 90 is a Japanese third-generation main battle tank developed in the late 80s as a replacement for the outdated Type 61 and Type 74. Coming in Update 1.79, fans of Japanese ground vehicles may expect the arrival of the long-awaited Type 90 to the top-ranking battles of War Thunder. So I'll just read the history tab. Development of the Type 90 began almost immediately after the introduction of the Type 74 into service, with the Japanese High Command already looking for a superior replacement. A central aspect of the new machine would have been the ability to take on and defeat the new Soviet T-72 main battle tank. With that in mind, Japanese engineers began working on a prototype design, which would see completion in 1980. Two prototypes of the initial design were built, tested and improved upon between 1980 and 1986. Testing resumed in 1986 with a second batch of 4 prototype vehicles featuring a number of improvements over the initial 2. The most significant change included the replacement of the Japanese-made 120mm smoothbore gun with the established Rheinmetall 120mm L44 gun, most notably used by the M1A1 Abrams and the Leopard 2 at the time, but the Abrams uses an M256, whatever. The decision to change the gun from a domestic one to a licensed build alternative most likely came as a measure to reduce production costs, and it is interesting, at the time this was the most expensive MBT ever made. I think it was $7.7 million US at the time. In comparison, the M1A1 cost about $4.8 million to produce, but they built 8,000 of those in total. Sorry, 8,000 M1 variants in total, so that's the difference there. Anyway, moving on. However, unlike the MBTs of Western armies, the designers of the Type 90 opted to equip the tank with an auto-loading mechanism, making it the only production vehicle that did so in combination with the Rheinmetall 120mm cannon. Further testing and army trials of these prototypes was conducted during the late 80s before the Japanese Army formally introduced the tank into service in 1990 as the Type 90. Production of the Type 90 began in 1990 and continued until 2009, of which 341 vehicles have been made. Now, I know this is highly repetitive from the video that I already made on the Type 90, however, I did have uploading issues with that one, so I could not get that out before the devblog came out, so please forgive me. In War Thunder, the Type 90 will become available to all players as the new top-tier vehicle of rank 6 of the Japanese Ground Forces tree, bringing it with a whole host of modern vehicles over its predecessors. The Type 90 will give the Japanese tankers the opportunity to experience firsthand what top-tier combat is all about. Developed primarily as a counter to the T-72, which is not in the game yet, it was clear from the start that the Type 90 had to be well armed in order to succeed in this endeavour, which it is. It uses German ammunition. Featuring a similar gun as found on the Leopard 2K already in-game, future Type 90 drivers can come to expect nothing short of superb ballistic properties of this tried and tested cannon. A good cannon, backed by an auto-loading mechanism in combination with a stabilizer, gives the Type 90 drivers the freedom of choice when considering how to deal with the threat at hand. Whether it be picking off targets at extreme range, close-quarters brawling, or high-speed manoeuvring engagements, the Type 90 is suited for all combat scenarios and quickly adapt to a sudden change in the battlefield. Now, just a side note, the way I was taught, let's not go into background here, but the way I was taught is that any gun... Okay, so the reason I don't call it a cannon on a tank, you can call it a cannon if you want, but the way I was taught, and it kind of gripes me every time, I don't know, this is just a personal thing of mine, a cannon has its dates back to when the cannon was first, like the cast bronze cannons and things like that. So to me, in military terms, a cannon refers to an artillery piece, like a battery of such. So you'd have a battery of cannon. When you put a gun into a tank, it's always been known to me as a tank gun. Now this might sound stupid, I can understand many of you are just like, it's the same shit. But to me, the purpose is like, it differentiates between, say, a self-propelled howitzer is not a tank and vice versa. There can be a blurred line, but to me a tank gun is something that is equipped on a tank that is designed to engage armoured or soft targets or whatever. An anti-tank gun is an anti-armour weapon, and then a cannon to me is an artillery piece. I don't know, if you've ever been taught military, if any of you have a military background, you might understand what I'm trying to say here, but I don't know, I'm going on a little tangent, but that's just something I was always taught, is that a gun, like you'd refer to the tank gun as the tank gun, not the tank cannon, because a cannon is a term we use for artillery pieces. God, I'm bad at explaining things, but yeah. Moving on to the Devblog, being designed to combat some of the most advanced armoured vehicles of the time, meant that the Type 90 had to not only be good at taking out its target, but also reliably deal with incoming enemy fire as well. Protection of the tank in the frontal projection is provided by the combined armour of the turret and hull, but it should be noted that the sector with special armour blocks cover the fighting compartment is very limited, which is why you should always try to keep your front facing the enemy. The side armour of the turret and hull can only provide protection against damage from the automatic cannons of small caliber and shell fragments. In the case of a penetrating shot compromising the ammo stowage located at the rear of the turret, the Type 90 is able to prevent an ammunition cook-off in a similar manner to the M1 Abrams, which is, so these like rear turret bustle designs, they all sort of took cues from the Abrams, especially, I believe the Challenger 2 was equipped with a similar function, or does that still have the separate ammunition? I'm pretty sure Challengers have single-piece ammunition now, don't they? The Challenger 2. Fuck, I'm going to tangents again. Although the front armour is cleverly employed with blow-up panels, might save the tank from its ultimate demise in the case of a direct hit, they are still far less effective than avoiding getting hit in the first place. In addition, just as in Soviet tanks equipped with automatic loading mechanisms, there are only 3 crew members in the vehicle. Fortunately for aspiring Type 90 drivers, this has been made very easy with the installment of a 1500 horsepower engine, the Mitsubishi 10-cylinder. Despite the fact that the tank weighs just over 50 tons, the powerful Mitsubishi engine manages to bring the Type 90 up to a top speed of 70 km per hour on roads and even manages 32 km per hour in reverse. Thanks to its great mobility, the Type 90 commanders not only waste next to no time getting into position, but are also able to reposition at a moment's notice in case their location becomes compromised. Furthermore, the adjustable suspension of the Type 90, although being much more simplified than that of the Type 74, allows drivers to adapt the vehicle to uneven ground and counter some of its negative effects on gun handling, like increasing gun depression on a reverse slope, for example. So yeah, this vehicle does have a power to weight ratio of 30 horsepower per ton, so this is going to be insane. Like I said, this is basically a Japanese Leopard 2A4. It's going to be awesome. I'm not going to get one anytime soon, but it's going to be awesome for those of you who with the Type 74. Whack a talisman on that shit and go for it, because this is going to be the vehicle of your dreams, especially at top tier. Keep in mind though that you're not just going to be fighting the current top tier. This thing will have to go up against what I'm assuming to be the M1A1, the T80, all those kinds of vehicles. So, but this thing will be a blast. Although the Type 90 never underwent a real trial by fire in its service life, War Thunder players will have the chance to pit it up against some of its contemporaries in update 1.79 M1A1 cough. Stay tuned to the news to find out more about the next upcoming update for War Thunder. Until then. So yeah, that's the end of the Devblog, and I can honestly say this is good to see that they're finally sort of bringing in vehicles of, like, Japan has always been one of those nations, like when they've got their ground forces, that's when the game came out of open beta into, well, the full release game. So it's always been interesting to me to see the way the Japanese can develop. A lot of people thought the heavy tanks would be coming, but to me they're very paper. some of them might have existed in Manchuria, but I don't know. This to me is what the Japanese players deserve. You're going to have German ammunition, but like for those of you who are a big fan of Japanese tanks, some of you might be Japanese, take pride in the fact that this tank is indigenously built. Even if it is taking a lot of cues from the Leopard 2A4, you still build this yourselves, so I don't know. Take pride in your armour, guys, and it is late and I'm going to go to bed, so it is been your boy Garage Gaming. Sorry about the tangents, but, you know, I'll catch you guys next time.